Hey everybody, welcome to ARE Live. I'm Patrick Finnegan, producer of ARE Live here at Black Spectacles, and I'm joined with architect Chris Hopstock, who is going to join us for a PDD mock exam where we're going to review several project development and documentation mock exam questions. We're going to go through questions that cover PDD knowledge and skills related to conflict resolution in contract documents, structural load calculation, roofing material selection within budget constraints, plumbing venting compliance, and occupancy, separation, and fire ratings. If you're joining us for the first time, Black Spectacles is a leader in ARE prep. We work with learning scientists and architects to ensure you're studying the right content and that you retain it so you can pass on the first try. We've built everything you need to pass the exams, including new video lectures with motion graphics and 3D animations, practice exams that are as close to the real thing as you can get, flashcards, quizzes, and virtual workshops. And they're all built upon a curriculum that ensures you're learning the right content, and they all work together with our custom-built platform to ensure that you retain the information so you remember it for the exams. It's why our pass rates are 50% higher than the national average, and why our members report passing in half the time of the national average. Over on our Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook social channels, we post mock exam questions daily. So if you don't already follow us, I'd suggest that you do. We're at black.spectacles on Instagram and TikTok, and just Black Spectacles on Facebook. Our next ARE Live will be on May 21st, where we'll be covering a PCM mock exam. You can go to blackspectacles.com/podcast to sign up, or you can also go to our community page, community.blackspectacles.com, and in the post called ARE Live PDD mock exam, April 2025, there's a link posted right at the top in there too to sign up. We offer a referral program for firms and schools where if you introduce us to your boss or HR, and if they sign up, we'll give you a $250 gift card of your choice. To participate, follow the instructions on blackspectacles.com/group-referral. And we also offer a refer a friend program where you can sign up to receive a customized discount code to save your friend 15% off any membership and receive a $50 gift card of your choice when they redeem. You can go to blackspectacles.com/referral to participate. We're going to be engaging exclusively on our online ARE community. So head over to community.blackspectacles.com, and right at the top, you'll see we've pinned a thread called ARE Live PDD Mock Exam, April 2025. If you have any questions as we're going through ARE Live today, post your questions there and we'll answer them live. And everyone who posts in that thread today will be eligible to win a free Black Spectacles t-shirt. Literally, all you have to do is go over to community.blackspectacles.com and say hi, and you're registered. And of course, don't forget to stay tuned until the end of the episode to see if you've won. Black Spectacles is hosting a 30-day study challenge to help you pass one exam in 30 days. The 30-day study challenge is here to help you stay focused and on track with a clear study plan, built-in accountability, and a supportive community to help you confidently schedule and pass your next ARE exam. This challenge is going to start on Thursday, May 1st and ends on Friday, May 30th. And it's available exclusively to pro and expert members. Signups are going to start tomorrow, April 27th, and you'll be able to sign up directly on your learning dashboard at learn.blackspectacles.com. And our community isn't just for ARE Live questions. We also launched a new podcast called Licensure Stories, which you can find on our ARE community, YouTube channel, or your favorite podcasting service, where our founder interviews recently licensed architects to learn about their struggles and successes, so you can learn how they did it. You can check out Licensure Stories on our ARE community or YouTube channel. And with that, I'd like to welcome today's guest, Chris Hopstock. In addition to working with us here at Black Spectacles, Chris is an architect based in New York. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm excited to join today and chat about some PDD practice questions. So before we jump into the 5 questions that I've prepared for today, let's just talk a little bit about the PDD exam. So PDD is often grouped with PPD, and I think a lot of folks don't know exactly what to expect on each of these exams. They're pretty similar. So let's talk about what makes PDD unique. 2 words that I came across in the ARE handbook that really stuck out to me were integration and documentation. So integration, really think about how you're combining multiple systems to create architectural assemblies. So for example, if you're designing an exterior wall, you're going to be combining insulation, air barriers, structure, finished materials, and so on and so forth, and integrating them into this one architectural system. That's a big part of what you're doing and what you're being tested on in PDD. And then documentation, that's the second D in PDD. You're going to be tested on how you create contract documents that cover the required scope of work and that are easy to understand by a bunch of people, bidders, contractors, and the AHJ. I think even with thinking about these two words, it's still kind of vague. You know, there's so many different building systems that architects deal with, and really our jobs are all about documenting designs. So the question is, how do you really study for this division that's kind of a behemoth? So my personal opinion, I think there are some core concepts that are going to be covered on just about any version of the PDD exam that you're going to take. And we're going to go over 5 of those today. These aren't the only 5, and maybe they might not even be the top 5, but there are 5 of them. And I think we do a really good job at Black Spectacles of covering this core content that you can expect on each exam. And I think if you focus on mastering that, you're going to be a good step of the way towards passing these exams. So like I said, focus on mastering these concepts. You want to get to a point where you can answer these types of questions quickly and correctly on exam day. Remember, you get about 2.5 minutes per question. So if you can answer these types of questions in, let's say, a minute or 90 seconds, you can bank some extra time for the more complicated questions and the inevitable random questions that are going to pop up. So keep all that in mind as we go through these questions. And Patrick, let's take it away and go to number 1. All right, so refer to the exhibit on the right. A project architect is performing QA/QC on a consultant's set of drawings prior to them being submitted to the authority having jurisdiction for permit review. Which of the fixtures shown is not properly vented? A, the water closet, B, the bathtub, C, the lavatory, or D, the shower. So this diagram that we're looking at is a classic drain, waste, and vent, or DWV system. And for PDD, it's super important to know the components of these systems, know what a plumbing riser diagram like this one looks like, and specifically to understand how venting works, because venting is a super common topic on this exam. So I think the simplest way to conceptualize venting for plumbing is to do something that we've probably all done. Put a straw in a glass, put your finger over the top of the straw and lift the straw out of the water. The water is going to stay in the straw. It can't flow. It seems to defy gravity. Then as soon as you move your finger off the top of that straw, the water is going to flow and just follow gravity down back into the cup. So it's kind of the same idea with venting. If you've got a plumbing system and there's no way for air to get introduced into that plumbing system, your liquids won't be able to flow because there's no air to take the place of that liquid in the pipe. So it creates a vacuum, if you will. So a venting system allows for air to be introduced and allows for the plumbing to flow as you would expect towards your sewer or towards your septic system. So in plumbing riser diagrams and in this one, vents are typically shown as dashed lines, and the VTR label at the top is the vent through the roof, and that's where the air is introduced into the plumbing system. And an important concept to understand is that every fixture is going to require a vent for it to operate properly. So looking at this diagram, every fixture here except the one that's labeled WC, which stands for water closet, and that's what we would normally call a toilet, has a vent line attached to it. So in this diagram, the toilet is missing the vent, and that is the correct answer here, which is choice A. This is a relatively simple question about venting. I would say for PDD, you should also know about the differences between wet venting and dry venting, some other considerations for a DWV system, like how traps work. You can see the little squiggly line under most of these fixtures. Those are traps and what their function is, slopes and materials of piping, and then how septic systems and sanitary sewers work. It's super common to see a few plumbing questions on PDD. And if you're familiar with these core concepts about plumbing, I think you can feel pretty confident you'll get those correct. All right, I think we can move on to the next question, number 2. Okay, an architect is preparing a contract document set, and the principal in charge has recently performed a quality control review of the documentation. The principal asks the architect to add a note to the contract documents telling the contractor what to do in the event of a conflict between the contract drawings and the specifications. Which of the following notes is appropriate to add to the project's general notes? A, In the event of a discrepancy between the drawings and specifications, the drawings shall govern. B, in the event of a discrepancy between the drawings and specifications, the specification shall govern. Or C, the drawings and specifications are complementary. Contractor to notify architect of any discrepancies immediately. So you'll likely see a couple of questions like this on the PDD exam where they're going to ask you about how to put together a set of contract documents rather than really asking you about the content of those documents themselves. I think when people think of PDD, they generally think about assembling systems and knowing everything there is to know about all the various materials, and that's certainly the majority of this of the PDD exam, but you're going to see a few questions like this as well, so might as well get them correct. So I would recommend being very comfortable with CD best practices and what's included in the CD set and bidding sets and what's not. So choice A and B are essentially the same here. A just says that the drawings are more important, and B says that the specs are. I've seen drawing sets with notes like these. I think usually it's an attempt to avoid some RFIs that would happen if the drawings and specs are in conflict, which, to be honest, is likely going to happen at some point on a project if it's a large project. It's really not best practice. So let's think of an example here where there's maybe a conflict. Let's say your drawings call for 3/4 inch plywood roof sheathing and the specs call for 5/8 of an inch. Do you really want to just have a general note that tells the contractor to follow one or the other? Probably not. Maybe the 3/4 of an inch is really a code requirement. You're in an area with very high winds and you updated the drawings to show that, but you forgot to update the specs. Or maybe just the owner wants 3/4 of an inch plywood because they view it as a superior product. You wouldn't, if you just tell the contractor, just follow the drawings if there's a conflict, or just follow the specs rather, you wouldn't be getting the owner what they wanted, or you might not even be in compliance with the code, right? So it might take a few extra minutes of your team's time to answer an RFI about this, but it would really be better to just review the situation and tell the contractor what to do in an RFI response. So that's why the correct answer here is choice C. Drawings and specs are complementary, and the contractor should let you know immediately if and when they find a discrepancy. Just a note, this word immediately is important because it's to avoid the contractor, say, finding a discrepancy, waiting 3 days to let you know, and then claiming that they've been delayed for 3 days because the drawings were coordinated. So you kind of put the onus on them to let you know right away so that you can deal with the situation. Another note about this idea of drawings and specs being complementary is that it means that if you call for something in one of these documents, the drawings or the specs, but not the other, it's still required for the project. So another example, maybe continuing with a roof, is that if you have a roofing spec for a vented roof and your spec has some requirements for a ridge vent there, well, maybe you didn't draw the ridge vent on the drawings. It's kind of hard to see anyway. They're typically not drawn, right? The ridge vent is still required. It's covered in one of those documents, and the documents are complementary. So the contractor can't just say, well, I was following the drawings and the ridge vent wasn't shown, so I don't owe the owner one. And like we said in this question, it's best practice to have a note like this on the drawings. Even if you didn't, though, AIA A201 section 1.2.1 does reference the drawings and specs being complementary, so you are covered there. But again, best practice, I would have a note like this on the general note sheet of any drawing set that I'm working on. All right.
Thanks, Chris. We actually have a question. I'm gonna go back to question number 1, just because we had one that just rolled in. I also want to let everyone know, if you have any questions during ARE Live today, you can go to community.blackspectacles.com, and we have a thread called ARE Live PDD Mock Exam April 2025, and you can drop your question there, and then I'll bring that up to Chris live during this too, so we can get that answered. And then this one's around, this is from Jesus Abril Jr., and they're asking, how far can a vent be from a trap?
I would probably have to look that up in the code. I want to say, I don't think it's from a trap. Well, let me take a step back. I don't think that it's from a trap. I think it's the distance is from the fixture itself. And the reason that there's a distinction there is that toilets, as you can see in this diagram, don't have a trap per se, they have an integral trap in the fixture. So I believe there's a distance from the fixture itself, and I want to say it's 6 feet, but don't quote me on that. It is definitely covered in the building code.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then we can roll into number 3 now.
Sure.
Sweet.
All right, question 3. So an architect is preparing the contract document set for a mixed-use project that will contain 3 stores on the ground floor, which are occupancy M, an underground parking garage, which is occupancy S2, a small office space, which is occupancy B, and apartments on floors 2 through 5, which are occupancy R. The building will be fully sprinklered. Between which 2 occupancies will the required fire rating be the lowest? A, between the stores and the parking, B, between the offices and apartments, C, between the parking and the stores, or D, between the stores and the office. So I would say it's super common on the PDD exam to see a question that requires you to use table 508.4 because remember the PDD exam is supposed to be about the time frame, kind of the CD phase of the project, where it's very common that you would be doing your wall type tagging and determining these fire rating requirements between occupancies. So this is a super simple table to use, and I'm going to go through that with you all in a second, but I would still recommend practicing it a lot so that when you see these questions on the exam, you can answer them quickly, confidently, and hopefully use some extra time towards some more complicated questions. I want to point out here that there's a lot of different permutations here, but there's only 4 possible answer choices. You might be tempted to just start with, looking at the question, just start with occupancy M and S2, and then M and B, and so on and so forth, and kind of move through that way. But if you just check each answer choice here and find the required rating between each of them, and then choose the one with the lowest rating, that's going to be the fastest way to answer this question. So Patrick, we can move on to the answer slide, and I'll explain how to use the table. So to use this table, find one occupancy along the left and the other occupancy along the top, and then you're going to find where they intersect, which is where we've highlighted here in red. It doesn't matter which one is on the left and which one is on the top. They'll all lead you to the same answer, but I would say figure out if you like to use the top first or the side first, and just always use it in the same methodology. That's going to just avoid you wasting 5 to 10 seconds on the exam thinking about how you want to use this table. So for me, I would, and then there's one more thing. Along the top, you're going to see some columns that are labeled S and NS within each occupancy group. That stands for either sprinklered or non-sprinklered. So our question here refers to this building as being fully sprinklered. So whichever column we're using, we want to be using the S column because we're fully sprinklered. So what we're looking at here in the highlighted red row and column is the row and column for the correct answer, which is answer D here, the stores and the office. So let's say we're going to do stores along the left here. Stores are occupancy M, which stands for mercantile, and then the office along the top, which is occupancy B for business. And then we're going to follow the S column for sprinklered. We would arrive at an intersection which has an N in it. That's a lot of letters, I know. N stands for no separation requirement, or essentially a 0-hour wall. Without going through the mechanics for choices A through C, they all require a 1-hour rating. So D is the answer here, just because it doesn't require a rating at all, and that's kind of it makes some sense because stores and an office are kind of very similar occupancies anyway. Even many stores might have an office in the back, and there's not a required rating between those 2 types of spaces. So again, super simple question, but I wouldn't overlook it. I think you can get tripped up if you don't practice these types of questions. And once you get really good at them, they're kind of gimmies. So you want to look for those types of questions that you're really good at answering and just make sure you get them correct on test day. All right, on to number 4. Refer to the exhibit on the right. An architect is working with their structural engineer to design an L-shaped deck on the side of a rural municipal building. The deck will support a uniform live load of 50 pounds per square foot. what is the total load imposed upon column C? Choice A is 7,000 pounds, B is 3,500 pounds, and C is 1,750 pounds. Okay, so tributary area is kind of a favorite question type on the ARE because there's really an endless number of situations that this exact question could be asked about. If you just draw a different structural grid, you can ask what's the tributary area of every single column or post, and it's essentially a new question. For those who don't know what tributary area is, it's the area of a floor that a column or a post supports. So it's important to understand this concept when you're working with your structural engineer to size posts and size footings. Of course, in the real world, you're probably not going to be doing these calculations, but you want to understand how the concept works so that you can have intelligent conversations with your engineer about it. So this diagram is a little bit complicated with the beams, the ledger, and the corner condition, but honestly, the tributary areas are relatively simple. Let's go to the next slide, Patrick. So you need to find the midpoints between each of these supports, right? So the supports are the squares with a little X in them that represents the post. Find the midpoint between each of the supports, connect all of them, and then find the area around each of the columns. So this question, you can see that the line to the left of column C is halfway towards the corner column. The line to the right of column C is halfway towards column D. And then the line below column C is halfway between the column itself and the supporting wall, which has a ledger on it. So that area around column C with the sort of diagonal crosshatch in it is the tributary area of column C. And that is a 14 feet wide by 5 foot deep area. So, okay, back to the question. It's asking about the load imposed upon column C. So in order to find that, we need to multiply the length and width of the tributary area, and then multiply by the load given in the question, and then we'll have the total load. In this case, it's not actually the total load. There would be some dead load in there, but we're going to use the load that's given in the question. So you can see the calculation in the lower right here shows that we're going to use 14 feet wide by 5 feet deep. That gives us an area of 70 square feet, and then 70 square feet times our 50 pounds per square foot as given in the question is 3,500 pounds, which corresponds with answer choice B. Question 5, an architect is working on a project with a construction manager as advisor, and the project team is determining which roofing material to specify. The total area of the roof is 4,000 square feet, and the CM's budget notes a maximum price for the roofing material of $24,000. The owner would like the architect to specify the roofing material with the best warranty possible that's within the project's budget. Which material should the architect specify? A, asphalt shingles by ABC Roofing. B, architectural asphalt shingles by BKS Roof Supply Incorporated. C, architectural asphalt shingles by XYZ Roofing. Or D, a standing seam metal roof by CS Roofing Materials Co. And we've got a table on the right here that gives us the different companies, the warranties they offer, and the cost. So section 5 of the PDD exam is all about cost estimating, and I think it kind of gets overlooked because it's really only about 5% of the exams, but 5% of this large 100-question exam means you're going to see 5 questions like this, and they're usually just pretty simple math and require some logic and reasoning skills to get through. But I feel like if you practice them, you can hopefully get 4 or even 5 of them correct and really just boost your score by getting really good at this question type. So I wouldn't overlook them. Also, they tend to talk about architectural materials and systems like this question does without, you don't really need a knowledge of roofing materials in order to answer this question. It's kind of just window dressing to the question and to make it more realistic. You're not going to use any knowledge of standing seam metal roofs or the different types of shingle roofs to answer this question. You're simply doing math and you shouldn't get tripped up by that. And like I was saying, these are, they're just predictable question types. So I think if you practice them, you might as well do so and try to get them right. So here this question gives us a total budget which is $24,000, an area of the roof, which is 4,000 square feet, and 4 choices have prices in dollars per square foot. So we've got a total price in the question, we've got a cost per square foot in the reference chart, and we've got to kind of pick one. We've got to come to a common denominator here so that we can compare apples to apples. So I think let's take a look at the maximum budget in terms of dollars per square foot, and then we can compare that to our chart. Let's move on to the next slide. So like I said, very simple calculation. We're just going to take the 24,000 total budget for this item. We're going to divide that by the 4,000 square foot area, and that comes out to $6 a square foot. So that's our maximum cost that we can spend per square foot on this material. So we're going to find the material or materials that have a price that's less than that, which is both choices A and B. A being $3 a square foot and B being $5.50 per square foot. The question says that the owner wants the best warranty that they can possibly get for their money. So we're going to choose the material that's within our cost per square foot, which is either A or B, that has the better warranty. So that's B, because B has a 25-year warranty, whereas A has a 20-year warranty. So B is the correct answer to this question. I think this question has some distractors. It might take a little bit of time to read and kind of wrap your head around, but once you kind of sort through all that, it's a relatively simple question. I think with questions like these, you need a good amount of practice. Just reading them, I think you can do some highlighting. I would probably highlight the area of the roof in this question, the 24,000 square feet, and the owner's preference for the best warranty. Those are probably the 3 key things here, and you'll be a good way along towards answering this correctly. And that's all I got. We can open it up for some Q&A.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, just like Chris said, if you have any questions about these mock exam questions or just any of your studies that you've had while going through PDD, feel free to drop them in our community.blackspectacles.com. And Chris, I do have one kind of like overarching PDD question. Bondon is asking, other than like Black Spectacles content, what materials do you recommend for studying specifically structural load calculations?
Structural load calculations, that's a good one. I can't remember if this book is still a resource that's listed in the ARE handbook, but there's a book called Simplified Engineering for Architects that I found very useful in solidifying my understanding of that topic. I mean, even if it's not a reference that's listed anymore, it definitely covers the material well. I will say that our material also does a fantastic job of explaining these concepts, and that's a super long book. Like you'll learn a ton about structural engineering from the perspective of an architect. You can really bog yourself down learning all of that for the purposes of the exam. So if you're into that and you want to really master the topic, I think that's a great book. But if you read it cover to cover, you might spend quite a while doing so with not that much bang for the buck as it relates to the ARE.
Oh, cool. And then in the community, yeah, Jesus just dropped an Amazon link to, was that Simplified Engineering for Architects and Builders. So I feel like that's a good resource to check out too, if you're looking for something additional. And then Chris, I just sent you over another question that we had that was kind of like on the technicals, or I guess the mathematics on question 5. Tom was asking how he kind of had a different method and answer for this one. So I'm just gonna read this out, but let me know what you think about this. So Tom was saying for question for number 5, he had for A, the square foot was 3 square foot times 4,000, so that got him to 12,000, and then he divide that by 20 years, and that gave him $600 per square foot. This same method went down, means that B is $880 per square foot. So he's a bit confused. Can you clarify a little bit on this one?
Yeah, I think I totally understand the confusion. So I think what this person's thinking about is a life cycle cost analysis and kind of taking the initial cost, which is what we're talking about, the actual cost that it's going to be to install the roof, and then figuring out kind of how much you're spending per year of the warranty term for the roof. That's definitely a valid way of looking at materials, but this question isn't talking about life cycle costs. It's just talking about what you're paying for the installation, which is called the initial cost. So I totally get it. I get why one might go down that route. I would say this is kind of an example of stick to what the question's specifically asking. If it doesn't use the words life cycle cost analysis, I wouldn't go down that more complicated calculation. And then I think you're also not really comparing apples to apples because you're using warranty years and not like the actual lifetime of the product. Those are two different things. So it's not necessarily an accurate way of doing life cycle cost analysis.
Got it. And then this one's kind of another just additional books or anything like that by NCARB. Any books you recommend specifically to help pass PDD and PPD as well? You may have mentioned that, but if you want just to do a quick highlight on that.
No, yeah, I mean, my favorite book, I think, is Architectural Graphic Standards. I have the hard copy on my shelf right here. I open it multiple times a week. It's a good book, not just for the ARE. It's like a really great architectural library store. Get the hardcover if you can, and you'll just have it forever. And honestly, I'm a little bit of an architecture nerd, but I like looking through it. And if you're ever just wanting to check your work while you're drawing a detail, it's great to just open the pages to a similar detail and hopefully see that the textbook shows you kind of a similar idea to what you were thinking. So I always recommend that book to people. Again, it's not great to use that book for the purpose of studying for the ARE because it's so long and it's mostly images. And it's just kind of like, it's a great reference book if you have specific questions, but it's not going to guide you through what you need to know for the ARE.
Gotcha, cool. And then I'm gonna hop back to question number 1. And we got a question on, do you have like a quick rule to remember the difference between a stack vent and a vent stack? Any just like quick tips or anything like that to like just I guess like maybe a mnemonic device or something like that maybe?
I wish I did, but I confuse them to this day. I know.
I confuse them just saying it out loud right there too.
Yeah. I think I see that question like pop up in the various communities like a couple of times a year. For some reason, people sort of hone in on that part of event diagrams. But something to remember is that the ARE is not really going to ask you like a question that just requires you to remember something. So I don't know. Like you should probably know it. If I was about to take this exam tomorrow, I would know the difference. But it's just something I've forgotten over the years, I guess.
Gotcha, cool. And then they're asking, we have another question that's around the roof loading question. And yeah. I think that is for, just correct me if I'm wrong on that. That'd be question number 5, correct?
Question 4 was the
4,
load.
Sweet, awesome. Yeah, let's hop back on that one. Yeah, cool. So they're asking, why is it 3,500 pounds as the answer? Yeah, can you just like kind of clarify on that one?
Yeah, so the question is asking about the load imposed on column C. So to find the load that this column is supporting, we need to find the tributary area, which is the in this diagram, it's the diagonal cross-hatched area. That's everything on this floor that column C is ultimately supporting. So that area is 14 by 5 or 70 square feet. We then take the load that the question gives us, which is 50 pounds per square foot, and just multiply those two things. So if you just think about it conceptually, the code wants you to account for 50 pounds of stuff, of live load, of people, of furniture, 50 pounds on every single square foot that this column is supporting, right? And this column is supporting 70 square feet. So you just have to multiply those two numbers together, and then you get 3,500 total pounds that this post or column is supporting. And you would use that number to generally to figure out how big of a footing you need. So let's say your ground could only support 1,000 pounds per square foot, right? And this post is supporting 3,500. You would need a 3.5 square foot footing in order to support this post.
Gotcha. And then, so I guess on that one, really the big thing is to focus on the way that the question is phrased, to where it's specifically just asking about column C, and like that's where your focus should be going then, correct?
Yeah, that could have been the confusion, is because column the letter C is like on the next row. Maybe they didn't fully read it. But yeah, you know, if you could just read this question incorrectly and think that it's asking about the total load, and then just find the area of the deck and multiply that by 50 pounds per square foot, that would be incorrect. But there's also not a choice that has that high of a number. So if you, luckily there's no more fill in the blank questions, so you wouldn't just enter that number and think that you were, you know, correct. You would, with this one, you would realize that you had gone astray if you did that. The other thing to note here is all of the answer choices are like 3,500 is in the middle, and then 7,000 is double that, and 1,750 is half of it. So if you, 1,750 corresponds to the load that the smaller, you know, the smaller tributary areas are supporting, and then
Cool.
7,000 is
Gotcha.
if you two of them, yeah.
And then one that's kind of a almost like rephrasing of this question, but Miguel's asking in question 4, if they were to ask for the column size instead, how would you like approach that response?
Yeah, so column size, I mean, you would need likely the building code in order to figure that out. I am not 100% sure if the building code has this table, but I am pretty familiar with the International Residential Code as well, and there is a table that will give you, based on the height of the column and the loads that it's supporting, when you need to go from a 4x4 to a 6x6 to an 8x8. So you wouldn't just see a question that expects you to have that type of thing memorized. You would probably see that in a case study if they gave you all the material you would need to actually figure it out. It would be way too much to put into just a standalone question like this.
Gotcha, cool. And then I'm gonna hop back to question number 1, just because we have a couple people that are asking. Can you just do a like further explanation on why it'd be water closet on this one?
Yeah, so go up one more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So this is the image that goes along with the question. The water closet here has, you know, if you go downstream from the water closet, which is the leftmost fixture here, the next thing that the pipe from the water closet gets to is the bathtub drain, right? That would be like if you installed this way without the proper venting, like we're going to show in the next image, this water closet would try to get air from that bathtub drain in order to actually be able to have water flow. Or it would try to get air from more downstream, but it wouldn't have the proper place to get air in from, right? So what happens if that bathtub drain gets blocked, right? Maybe there's a ton of hair in the bathtub drain and that point is now blocked, right? Well, now the water closet is just searching for air every time you flush, so that it can actually push the waste down the pipe. And if it can't find air, as we know from the straw example, it's not going to flush. You're going to have a backup. Ultimately could lead to pipes failing and just a bunch of issues. So go to the correct image now. One slide.
Yeah, gotcha.
So that additional pipe that was added right there allows the water closet to get air from the vent through the roof, right? And the reason that's way better than relying on the bathtub drain to do it is this pipe can never get clogged. There's no like actual water. It's a dedicated vent for this fixture. It will always be free flowing air in that, and it will allow the water closet to flow.
Gotcha, cool. And then we're gonna hop back to question number 5 too. Could you just give a quick explanation on where you got the answer for number B? Because I know it's between A and B.
Oh yeah, so A and B both meet the budget, right? We determined based on our calculation that the maximum we could spend on the roofing is $6 a square foot, and A is $3 a square foot, and B is $5.50 a square foot. So they're both within budget. The second to last sentence in the question says the owner wants the architect to specify the roofing material with the best warranty possible. That's within the architect's budget. So choice B has a 25-year warranty. Choice A has a 20-year warranty. So with warranties, you want the longer period. That just means that if you installed both of those roofs today, roof B would be warranted luckily it's 2025, so the math is easy. Roof B would be warranted until 2050, meaning if something goes wrong with the roof, your contractor will fix it until year 2050. And then choice A will be warranted until year 2045. So you just get 5 less years of not having to worry that if something goes wrong with the roof, the contractor is going to fix it. Warranties are very important to understand in that way, and roofing is just like a very common thing that warranties are applied to on the exam, because roofs are going to get replaced within the lifetime of a building. It's just the nature of roofing and of weather. So warranties are super important to folks when they're thinking about roofing.
Got it. Cool. And then I'm gonna hop back. We have two kind of like clarification questions for number 4 and number 1. But for number 4, Jennifer was asking, just so I have this right. So they're asking why are we getting asked about column C and not column B? And in this question, that was one thing I wanted to like clarify with you, Chris, on to where the way that the question is phrased is asking for column C, so that's where you should be focusing. And then the answer would then bring you to 3,500 pounds B. That's correct, right?
That's correct. Interestingly, column B, you would get the same answer if we asked about column B, because it has the same tributary area. And there's really no reason why I picked column C. I don't know. My name starts with C, but
there it is. That answer.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just what the question's asking. But yeah, this deck it just happened to work out that the two sort of center columns have the same areas, and all the corner columns up too as well.
Gotcha, cool. And then I'm gonna hop back to question number 1, because Miriam was asking, can we draw the correct location for the vent? So this is how the question was presented, Miriam. And if you'll notice on the left side, there's the water closet WC and the bathtub. I'm gonna scroll over to the next, to the answer of this, and you'll see where this is drawn to where you can see the dotted line between the water closet and the bathtub. That's where that location for the event would be.
Nailed it. Patrick, you're learning.
I know, right? And then we have another one that would be, can you just further explain the answer for question number 2?
Yeah, so the long and short of it is that if you put any of notes A and B on there, if you tell the contractor whatever discrepancy you find, follow the drawings, or whatever discrepancy you find, follow the specs, that's just a blanket statement. Like, if there's a discrepancy, how do you know that always one of those things is going to be correct, right? You don't really. So it's a little bit lazy, in my opinion, to just do it that way. Like I said, I've seen it, but it's certainly not best practice. And I know nobody wants to answer RFIs, but this type of an RFI where your drawings just have a little bit of missing coordination in them is okay. As long as you're not getting a million of these RFIs and you're acting outside of your standard of care, it's okay. It's going to happen. It's nothing to get worried about. You just need to have the contractor bring the question up to you so that you can answer it and get them to install the right product ultimately.
Gotcha, cool. And it looks like I've got just 2 more things to bring up to you. One is there any reason we would place different vents for these fixtures, or can they all be in one vent through the roof as a common practice?
Let's go up to the diagram for a second.
Which one would this be? It would be this one, right?
Yeah, this one's good. So cool. They do combine. You do want to reduce your vents through the roof for a number of reasons. One, it's just less piping, so it's going to be more cost effective. 2, it's just less holes through the roof. Every hole, like this vent is just a pipe through the roof, so you're losing some heat. I mean, it's a small pipe, but you're losing some heat through the roof. It's a place where your air barrier is going to be broken. You want to have, just as a general practice, you want to have as few holes in your building as possible. I mean, you're going to 1 or a couple, but you want to limit that. So they are combined generally above a ceiling to go through the roof, hopefully once or twice on a relatively small building. You want to have a separate one for each fixture, and there are some ways you can combine them for certain fixtures, but generally, and probably for the purposes of the area, you want to have a separate one for each fixture, just in case, if you just had one for these 4 fixtures and something got clogged, well, all 4 fixtures wouldn't work. If you if you have a separate one for each fixture and it gets clogged, you can kind of isolate the problem and figure out what's going on.
Cool. And then just one more question on this one. And this is in reality always spec shall govern, right? Is that fair to say?
No, not in reality, and
Okay.
not only. I think this is a place where the ARE does mimic real life. Is that really, if there is a conflict, you should look at it and figure out which of the things is correct. You might need to ask somebody senior in your office. You might want to talk to whoever wrote the spec and figure out why they wrote it that way and why it was drawn some other way, and just kind of get to the bottom of it, as opposed to just trying to think of it as like one of these things is always correct and one is not.
Gotcha. Cool. And then looks like that's all the questions that we, oh wait, one sec. And then we're going, we have just one more that's just show the answer for question number 3. Chris, if you want to just give a quick explanation for why question 3 would be D. I also want to mention too that we're going to be we upload all of our ARE Live episodes to YouTube, and you also receive an email after this once it's edited and uploaded. So you can go through these in your free time as well too.
Yeah. So this one, the way to use this chart is you're going to take one occupancy and find it along the left, and then the other occupancy and find it along the top, right? So choice D is the correct answer here. Stores, which are occupancy M, we can find that along the left and find the correct row there. Offices are occupancy group B, and this is all given in the question text in the parentheses. We can find that along the top. We're going to follow the column that's labeled S because this building is fully sprinklered according to the question, and then just find the intersection. Those intersect right there in that center square there that has an N in it. That N, if you look at the footnotes in the table, means no separation required. So if I had done that same exercise for choices A, B, and C, it would just take a little bit long, but you'd find that they all require a 1-hour rating in a sprinklered building. So the question is asking for the lowest rating required between any of them. A 0-hour rating would be the lowest.
Gotcha. And then we just had one more that rolled in. I think this is for question 1, so I'm gonna hop back to there. But if in the drawing there's a discrepancy, for example, the plumbing table calls for four fixtures as a number, but in the drawing it's written as 5 fixtures, which one would govern?
The plumbing table calls for 4. Well, I think then it comes down to whatever the intent was, right? I guess if you're asking, like, hopefully somebody would have brought this question up during the bidding phase, right? And they would be able to bid the project appropriately with the right number of fixtures. If it didn't, I think you're going to go down to, whatever the design intent was, whatever's shown in the plans, because you show each fixture in the plans, right? So if the architectural plans show 5 fixtures, it's pretty easy to infer that's the intent. So I would go that route. I think there's a hard argument to make that the contractor would only owe 4 fixtures if the plan for the project shows a 5 fixture bathroom, for example.
Cool, awesome, sounds good. And I guess Chris, maybe you can answer this one too. It's kind of still on why this would be the WC, like the water closet, how the vent should be for water closet. That was like our last question we have.
Yeah, so it's just because if you go up one slide, Patrick.
Yep, gotcha.
That fixture I think people are getting confused because I have the 2 images here. So if you're looking at the second image, it doesn't look like it's missing a vent because it's not. But anyway, this is the image that goes with the question, and you can see that there's just no vent for that fixture. It's naturally going to try to get air from the bathtub vent, which is allowed in some situations. That's called wet venting, but that's not what the question's asking about. But it's just not an ideal situation. It'd be better to have separate vents for all these fixtures. And if you're being asked which one is not properly vented, that means the question says that one of them is not vented. And the water closet or toilet here is the only one that's missing a vent.
Gotcha, cool. And then I'm just going to leave everyone with this last. We have a great explanation for the difference between a stack vent and a vent stack in our community from Mrosha. And the easiest way that they remember is actually by the last word in it. So when they see stack vent, they know it's the main line venting to the roof. And then the one that's named vent stack is the stack of pipes. So I think that's a great way to remember this. But Chris, I think that's all the questions we got on my end.
Great. I'm glad I was able to answer many of them.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you taking the time to go through this one. I know that these are some of the hardest exams, but Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you today, and thanks so much for supporting the architecture community.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you're joining us for the first time, Black Spectacles is the leader in ARE prep. We work with learning scientists and architects to ensure you're studying the right content and that you retain it so you can pass on the first try. Our next ARE Live will be on May 21st, where we'll be covering a PCM mock exam. You can go to blackspectacles.com/podcast to sign up. Over on our Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, we post mock exam questions daily. So if you don't already follow us, I suggest that you do. We're at black.spectacles on Instagram and TikTok, and just Black Spectacles on Facebook. And we offer a group referral program for firms and schools where if you introduce us to your boss or HR, and if they sign up, we'll give you a $250 gift card of your choice. To participate, you can follow the instructions on blackspectacles.com/group-referral. And we also offer a refer a friend program where if you sign up, you'll receive a customized discount code that you can share with your friend to save them 15% off any membership. And when they sign up, you'll receive a $50 gift card of your choice. You can go to blackspectacles.com/referral to participate. And I want to give a congratulations to Jesus Abril Jr. You posted in our community today and just won a free Black Spectacles t-shirt. I'll reach out to you via email to get your size and shipping information, and I'll be in touch soon. And just a reminder that if you'd like to be eligible to win a free t-shirt, all you have to do is post a question you have about our featured topic in our community during our next ARE Live. And our community is always active, not just during ARE Live, so poke around and see what other people are talking about or asking questions about. And we are also hosting our second 30-day study challenge to help you pass one exam in 30 days. The 30-day study challenge is here to help you stay focused and on track with a clear study plan, built-in accountability, and a supportive community to help you confidently schedule and pass your next ARE exam. This challenge starts on Thursday, May 1st and ends on Friday, May 30th, and is exclusively available to pro and expert members. You'll be able to sign up tomorrow, April 17th, on your learning dashboard. We've also launched a new podcast called Licensure Stories, which you can find on our ARE community YouTube channel and your favorite podcasting service, where our founder interviews recently licensed architects to learn about their struggles and successes so you can learn how they did it. You can check out Licensure Stories on our ARE community or our YouTube channel. And just want to do one more shout out for our next ARE Live. That's going to be on May 21st for a PCM mock exam. And finally, after this, you'll receive an email asking for a survey to see if you have any suggestions about how we can improve ARE Live. I promise we read every word that you write and use them to tune our next episodes. Thanks for tuning in.